Just haphazard what we find, rolling. And
Well, can you imagine if we had like a baby cub going through the set? That was,
hey, I was thinking for the set that Saltillo tile should
sponsor it?
should help us design and do the
Not a bad idea.
design.
Actually, my brother's girlfriend is a designer. I think she specializes in her own wardrobe, but there could be.
So, hi, welcome again, everybody. This is the Leverage Podcast. I am your host, Davio Venturis. I'm here as always with the preeminent 30-year cardiologist, Dr. Federico Macy. We all know him as Dr. Suave.
And you made me feel young. I'm only 30 now, right? I shrunk all those years of education experience into a time capsule.
Well, is it 30 years of practicing plus the 12 years of study, or is it just 30 years total?
Well, it's a total of 40, actually. I went to medical school and I don't want to say.
A while ago.
Yeah, 40 plus. So, anyways, lots of experience, lots of exposure, lots of unique events that shape your professional life.
Well, it seems like every case you get, then you learn something more, and it goes in that encyclopedic brain of yours. Speaking of which, I have a question. Our producer, Chandler, everybody loves Chandler. That segment's been so popular. We've had so much mostly positive feedback on.
Yes, mostly positive feedback.
And he sent us an article, and I think the question is something I would really like to get an answer from you. Why are men dying much more than women at every age? So that at every age, starting from babies, we're dying more.
Yes. So I believe the statistic is that men live 6 years less than women on average as of the 2021 CDC statistic.
Now, is this gap growing or shrinking?
It's growing. Right. So the exact number we're speaking about is that women live to be about 79.1 years and men about 73.2. So in exact numbers, it's a 5.9 year difference. And that's taking into consideration all ethnic groups. Okay? So that 6 year approximately gap is expanding.
That's significant.
Very significant. And, lately in the news and all over social media, there's this concept of a patriarchy, not only in the United States and Western societies as a whole, that everything is made in men's favor. Obviously, the longevity gods weren't in on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
What's up with that? So what are the things that men die from, or anybody dies from, right? Cardiovascular disease is the number one. Then cancer, right? Then others.
What about violence?
Violence too, yeah. So, but let's go one by one, because I think it's important it's a long list, and then we can summarize the whys and what can be done about it. Okay. So this is in no way intended to be against anyone or females, or, these are just facts. So let's start with cardiovascular disease. So according to the American Heart Association, men have 3 times the rate of heart attacks than women.
3 times.
3 times. That's a big number. So just so you know, in the US per year, there are roughly 800,000 people having heart attacks per year, of which 600,000 are new heart attacks.
And 200,000 are women.
No. And 200,000 are recurring heart attacks. So all people.
Right.
800,000 heart attacks approximately per year, 600,000 first-time heart attacks, 200,000 recurrent heart attacks. Of all of those, the ratios are 3 to 1, men to women.
Right.
It's a huge difference. So the question is why?
So it's 600,000 and 200,000.
No. Well, okay, I see what you mean. That's correct. You're right.
Okay.
You're Greek, right? Didn't you invent math too? Your people?
I did not personally invent math.
But your ancestor somehow.
I think they just synthesized it into the language and spread it.
I see.
I think a lot of the Greeks invented everything isn't actually true.
But it sounds good.
Well, but they did disseminate it in a huge way with Alexander the Great and his empire,
Absolutely.
The Silk Road.
Yes.
This is a topic for a different
No doubt.
thing. So 600,000 heart
Total
attacks are men,
men.
200,000 are women.
Per year. Yeah.
Is heart attack still the leading cause of death for women?
Yes. More so than all cancers combined. Cardiovascular disease. So
Right.
not just heart attack.
Right.
We're
But the
talking
full-
strokes, heart failure, sudden cardiac death. So cardiovascular disease as a category is the number one cause of death for women.
as well. But it's getting to the men faster.
Correct. And earlier.
Right.
Okay. And we'll talk about biologic differences in a minute.
Okay.
Testosterone, estrogen differences. Okay. The second is cancer risk. It's also higher in men. And it's, according to the American Cancer Society. And
Is that nature or nurture? Is that
there are
people-
both factors. So we'll deal with the genetic and the environmental. Environmental plays an incredible role because we men take riskier behaviors like smoking, for example, that increase the risk of cancer.
It's sounding like
in occupation as well, exposure to environmental agents, right? But the risk approximate of cancer per 100,000 people,
right.
okay, so per 100,000, men, about 187 deaths, women, about 139. So almost, again, 60 almost
Right.
difference per 100,000.
Right.
When you multiply to the adult population in the U.S., which is easily well over 200 million people, adult over the age of 18, that's a huge gap. Per 100,000,
Right.
about a 60. And that's according to the National Cancer Institute.
So they're dying from violence?
No, we're going to violence yet. We just talked right now about heart attacks.
Well, we did heart attacks and cancer.
And cancer. The next one is diabetes differences.
And
Yes.
and it's worse in men as well.
Yes. And that's according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, which is, it's a big conglomerate in California, very well respected. They have long-term statistics on all of their members. So per approximately, according to them,
Wow.
31 versus 19 deaths from cancer per every 100,000. So again, men have an excess of about 12 deaths more per
You said
100,000.
cancer or diabetes?
Diabetes. Diabetes. That's the Kaiser
Right.
Permanente Family Foundation. Okay. So that's a statistic that I pulled from the article. Don't think I have these memorized, but I kind of do. So how about being overweight? So men have a higher prevalence for being overweight. Now, let's define what overweight is. So the current definition is a body mass index of over 25, but yet below 30. That's being overweight. Obese is a body mass index over 30 and morbidly obese over 40. Okay. And there's a definition for, more severe obesity if you're between 35 and 40. But let's just divide it into
Right.
two groups.
Right.
Overweight.
And
So
obese.
that's somebody that could be 10 pounds above their allele body weight. And their body mass index is 26.
Right.
Okay. And they look great. And they can do almost any activity. Yet they have a higher prevalence of obesity being overweight, 1 in 3 men versus 1 in 4 women
Okay.
are overweight. And obese, it's approximately 43% of adult men versus
43%. Is that in the United States or worldwide?
That's in the US.
Right.
43%. And this-
43 are obese.
yeah. And this is according to the NIH statistics versus 41.9 of women. So there's a little bit more obesity in men, but it's not just obesity. We have to define whether it's central obesity or visceral obesity. The harmful one.
Central or visceral?
Visceral, meaning in
So
your
define the
belly.
difference between
Belly,
central and visceral.
pear shape, what some women call the dad bod, with, what you used to have not long ago, that pendulous gut that looks like a walking pear with 2 sticks.
Hey, I've heard that the dad bod is actually what's hot right now.
Oh, it is, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I like
So-
to interview those millennials and ask them about that. I bet they're all about to throw up and nauseating. The dad bod is sexy, right? Uh-huh. Yeah, in your dreams, dude. And so women get excess weight in the subcutaneous tissue in areas outside of the visceral compartment. Why is this important? Because the visceral compartment, that fat storage there,
Visceral meaning
where your guts are, in your belly,
okay.
right? as opposed to on your flanks, on your sides, on breasts.
Yeah.
Right? On the hips.
Right.
Right. What is the difference between that type of obesity, the visceral one, the one in the belly, versus the other?
Yeah. What is the difference? And
That
why?
you produce all kinds of hormones that cause more insulin resistance, more impairment of your metabolism.
The location of
Yes.
what do you think is the mechanism? Why does the location matter? Why is breast tissue good for your hormones, but belly fat, sexy dad bod belly fat is
Right.
not good?
Because there are hormones that are produced in that belly fat that are not produced in the other subcutaneous areas where fat gets stored in women that increase inflammation. So those hormones are called adipokines and pro-inflammatory hormones.
Did you say latipokines?
No, adipose.
Oh, adipokines. Okay.
Adipokines.
You said it so quickly that
Yeah. There's a table game called
like adipose tissue.
yes, adipose tissue, and then
I'm trying to
the
break it down
cytokines.
into Greek. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, see. So we should make a Monopoly game out of this. Like here, like you go on the board, you trade these adipokines for the non-toxic lipokines, right? So until you get the boardwalk, and then you go, you're done, right? So those produce inflammatory hormones that increase blood pressure, increase cholesterol, increase insulin resistance, so result in diabetes, prediabetes, diabetes. Okay, so they cause all the bad things
So
directly.
So men, when they get fat, tend to get it there,
Correct.
and women, when they get fat,
In subcutaneous
sometimes get it
tissues.
there, and that's when it's dangerous.
Correct.
But when it's in the other good places.
Yeah, it's not as harmful.
Right.
Right. Because the classification of obesity is done with body mass index, it just takes the whole corporeal weight and their height.
So men and women, not
Right.
always, but typically have the same weight. The
But-
man's going to be in worse shape.
Correct. In worse shape. Correct. So that will beget more of the diabetes complications, the hypertension, the cholesterol abnormalities, because you get what is called dysregulation of fatty acid metabolism, or in simple terms, your cholesterol is bad.
So, but it sounds like men are causing their own demise.
Yes, in some way. So we're going to the behavioral in a second.
Okay.
I'm just
Okay.
telling you
Yeah.
the reasons why. So men are more predisposed to being overweight, more predisposed to being obese, and that obesity is a dangerous one, with visceral fat being the predominant in men.
Is that what leads to the cancer and the diabetes?
Yes,
and the heart disease?
absolutely.
Okay.
So in addition, women are 40% more likely to seek medical help. We men have been taught to be more stoic, to be in denial about our medical problems, not to go to the doctor. So men often seek help late in their course of an illness.
Before they don't nip it in the bud.
Correct. Women are more in tune with their bodies, and that may be, again, another biologic differences between the brain of men and women, but also because they're menstruating every month, they're used to going to see their gynecologist and obtaining excellent recommendations. The gynecologist often said, hey, I need you to see an endocrinologist. Your sugar's starting to go up. Or I need you to see an internist because you have hypertension, from what I can see, and you want to get pregnant, and I don't want you to go into that pregnancy at a high risk for complications like preeclampsia, eclampsia, and seizures and so on, right?
So men just don't go to the doctor near as much,
Right.
or enough.
So in general, 40% more visits by women to a doctor in a single year. And, this was reported again by the CDC. So pretty reliable in terms of how men and women view their own health early in life. Okay. And then suicide. So
Don't tell me. It's got to be girls have it worse, right?
No.
Teenager.
no. Girls have more anxiety.
So they think
more
about
depression.
it more. They think about it.
But men act out on it. See, men are far more impulsive. Impulsivity is associated with
Testosterone?
lack of impulse control, testosterone, impulse. Yes, there you go. There you go. Now you're thinking biologically. So men think of something and act on it. Women may think on it, but then they realize, okay, there's a risk. There are consequences. I still don't feel good. I have issues. But a young man is more likely to act. So in that key demographic of young men, 19 to 25, the suicide rate is somewhere around 4 to 1, 4 times more. Yes, that's the report. It's impressive.
So,
Okay.
so men.
And even in middle-aged men, especially white men, it's 4 times more frequent than in women. I mean, I was shocked when I saw that statistic as well. What about risky behaviors? So risky behaviors would be alcohol consumption, drug consumption,
Drink driving.
drunk driving.
Do men die more from drunk driving?
Yes.
Even though the women are worse drivers, so they say. I would never say that.
I would
Mom,
never say
you're
that.
a lovely driver, Mom.
Yes.
But so men die more.
You know,
from
you
drunk
do a
driving?
thing when you don't tell the truth. You start twitching a little like this when things go on that aren't exactly up on the up and up.
Well, she's not the quickest driver, but she's very safe.
Very good. As long as she's not drinking.
Well, she doesn't drink and drive.
No, of course. Okay. So risky behaviors also, of course, drug abuse. Sometimes just what they feel is a curiosity and or a experimentation, but it can lead to more at-risk situations, like jumping off the rooftop into a pool,
Right.
and
Right.
smacking their neck on the side, right,
And dying. Right.
Yeah, that kind of thing, right? Street racing,
Riding in the back of your friend's pickup while he drives through the desert.
There you go. Things of that nature. So suicidal and risky behaviors are both much higher in men. And in fact, if you look at per 100,000, 44 men die from risky behaviors versus 21 women. It's a huge disparity. That's more than double.
Right.
It's a huge number. Okay.
Only double.
Yeah.
Most other things, it's like 4-1 or 6-1.
Yeah. So more that leads to biologic differences.
So it sounds like women are closer to men in risky behavior than they are in biological, like visceral fat and heart disease type stuff, from what you've just told me.
Well, somewhat. Okay. So the next topic is, biologic differences. How about infant mortality? Before there has been exposure to environmental stimuli, toddler or infants, live births, per 1,000 live births, the death rate is 5.87 for young boys versus 4.95 for young women or young girls per 1,000 live births. So an extra death per 1,000. That's a big number.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah. And in addition, as time goes on, because of testosterone, which has an adverse effect on our immune system, men are more predisposed to all kinds of infections. Yeah. Viral, bacterial, fungal, and parasitic. In fact, during COVID, can you take a guess the mortality per, say, 100,000 was between men and women?
The difference?
Yeah.
20.
A lot more. 140 men per 100,000 infected versus 87
It's a lot more.
per 100,000.
It's a 53 difference.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. Okay? Yeah. Per 100,000.
Per 100, yeah.
Yeah, per 100,000 infected. Yes.
The difference is almost as much as what women is by themselves.
And again, we know this, even if we do age-matched controls, like we compare women who are 50 versus 50, 60 versus 60. And I would think it's because COVID predominantly affects people who have central obesity.
Are those numbers aren't normalized for hypertension and obesity, so that would explain the difference.
Right. Those, hypertension, obesity, prediabetes, diabetes, the metabolic syndrome that we've talked about, the Hondas, the hypertensive, obese, non-compliant, diabetic adults, right? Men are more frequently
Go back and
affected.
listen to episode 3 to get more insight into Honda's
Concept. And our mission
diet.
in Leverage is to make you into a BMW, right? Your best metabolic well-being of you, BMW, right? So all of those factors factor in environmental issues, genetic, biologic differences between men and women. And it's interesting, in the postmenopausal year for women, there's a catch-up phenomenon on cardiovascular disease. So it would appear that estrogen...
What do you mean?
They start catching up to men on the number of heart attacks and strokes and cardiac death.
At a certain age.
Yeah, after menopause. And that is, the thinking goes, that is because they lose their estrogen protection. See, from an evolutionary biology standpoint, that has favored women because nature wants to keep us procreating.
Right.
So
you need more women.
We need women who are healthy during those critical years, reproductive years. So we don't want them to get diabetes. Nature has weeded out the ones that became ill. So we've evolved towards protecting women from serious disease like cardiovascular and cancer deaths and less risky behaviors. So this is an evolutionary consequence over millions of years in our prior, cousins in our species.
It's amazing that women defeat men in all these categories as far as being healthier, living longer, having a more robust immune system, a better processing. Let's face it, hypertension and cardiovascular disease is when your body isn't able to process what you're flowing through your veins as well.
Well, you have more inflammation, less nitric oxide.
But all these numbers are, on top of that, they're also giving birth. And
I know, it's impressive.
So
they're amazing.
If you normalize that out, it would be even a bigger gap.
Yes. And then, this is why women's health is so important, because they can retain tremendous health. This is why there are so many door knockers at the, nursing homes and assisted living facilities.
Door knockers what do you mean by that?
Well, the ratio is usually 4 women to 1 man or 8 women to 1 man, so that surviving man is getting his door knocked on every night. They're called door knockers.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah. You see, that's what if you take care of yourself, you can be the beneficiary of the door knockers.
So basically, the Leverage podcast is, if you listen to every episode, you too could be a door knocker.
You could inherit the position and the benefit of the door knockers because they want attention. It's, in some cases, I'm telling you the truth.
No, I know. This is a
8 women in their 80s
are still there
to 1 man.
So the one guy
is getting
a date.
It's the inverse of Tinder.
Right.
Huh?
It's the inverse of what's It's
the
inverse of what's happening on the online dating.
On online dating, where very few men are getting all the attention.
Well, I think that's a topic for another podcast. But
we touched on it before. So that is an amazing phenomenon. And this is why sometimes, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, but, I'm Mexican. And I tell the men, who are heavy set, maybe a Honda. I have a Honda patient in front of me. And
which is over 43% of the time.
Yeah. And well, in the Latino population, it's over 50%, because that was general statistics.
Oh, right.
But it's much lower in the Caucasian and much lower, even lower. The lowest are the Asian populations, are the healthiest in the United States and Western societies. And then the ones that have the most prevalence.
And the healthiest are the Greeks, you were saying?
The Greeks are fairly healthy, yeah. You guys fall under the white, right? But the ones most affected by these are people of color, such as Native Americans, African Americans, and Latinos. And I don't want to forget about, Hawaiian natives and Pacific Islanders and Alaskan natives as well, right? So we are the most affected by metabolic syndrome, the prediabetes, diabetes, and so on. And we can go on another occasion about the hunter-gatherer differences and cultural societies.
But between men and women, even in those populations, they still process the stuff better.
Correct.
Than their husbands.
Women have better insulin sensitivity. And again, so that means they're able to process sugars better and better regulation of the fatty acid metabolism during their early years, till age 45, 50, pre-menopause. So they're less likely to become diabetic. And once again, that's evolutionary biology helping the human species procreate.
Right.
Because you want healthy women.
Right.
So in the Latino population, when I have a Honda male in front of me, let's say 50, 55, and that man has issues, diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol issues, not taking care of himself, and clearly overweight or obese, and at times morbidly obese, I say, so who does the cooking? With my wife. I go, she's killing you, man.
Right.
Did you know that Latin women kill their men?
With diet.
Well, with love.
Right.
But the love is through the bad nutrition, with lard, lots of fat, saturated fat, the wrong oils.
Do you think that?
And too many sugars, right? So a stack of flour tortillas, the white bimbo bread, the extra bacon, 4 or 6 eggs, beans that have had sugar added, and then you may add to that some jelly on the bread,
on the toast,
on the toast, and then a big glass of cheap orange juice that has maybe another 30 grams of sugar, And so that guy already by breakfast has consumed more than 50 or 60 grams of sugar.
I thought that was a nutritious American breakfast, what you just described.
You mean SAD? The standard American diet?
Is that what you're supposed to have for breakfast? I thought you were supposed to have eggs, bacon, cereal, milk, orange juice.
You mean the Fruit Loops? Like double the serving portions?
Oh, I remember when I used to go to some competitions, and you would go to the dorm, the cafeteria, the university cafeterias.
They had boxes.
They would have the dispensers where you could just do as much as you wanted. And when I was young and playing basketball so many hours a day,
the ignorance of youth.
Oh well,
on nutrition. That just tells you about how amazing our bodies are in those early procreative years. Again, evolutionary biology. But then it says, not so much. Okay, liver, you're on your own now.
At what age? How does that? Is that because the nitrate? At what age does that happen? And why does it happen faster for men?
It depends on your genetics, what gene pool you come from, and on the maternal nutrition, and believe it or not, paternal nutrition. Paternal nutrition plays a role on whether the teenagers, on whether the teenagers are going to become obese and pre-diabetic. But the maternal nutrition is the most important. And it's a generational issue, so it accelerates. If the mother developed prediabetes or diabetes during the pregnancy, then the chances that she will be a diabetic are extremely high,
right?
But also her offspring, her children.
They already start off with
because there's an imprinting, the epigenetics in utero. So it's a very vicious cycle. Maternal genetics genetics and nutrition are incredibly important. And so jokingly, I said, your wife is trying to kill you.
Right.
But with love, I go, lovingly, she's been feeding you this way. And so I need you to bring her so I can explain to her how to change towards a healthier, type of eating for you, so that we can reach the goals to control the metabolic parameters that are inevitably over the next 10 years, putting you at high risk for major adverse cardiac events, strokes, heart attacks, and sudden cardiac death. So I got involved the whole family to really educate them. But also my thinking goes, that influence, that message will go to what I call, and many call, primordial prevention. So to start working on those young kids that are, say, under 10, who have yet to develop any risk factors, but you're doing primordial prevention. So get them aware of proper nutrition and exercise and activity.
Which of course is the idea behind the children's books that you guys are doing.
Correct. The Eisenhower series.
So the men that live
Can I plug it a little bit?
I know, but let's stick on the topic.
Yes.
Yeah, we love that book. Yeah, go ahead and plug it really quick.
No, I mean they're available for young parents to read with their children. They're meant for kids, grade 6 and below. It's called the Eisenhower series, and the books are available on Amazon. And it's under Fred Macy.
So before we wrap up this topic that we were on about male health, and it sounds like men are the cause of their own demise. There's some biologic component.
Absolutely.
But what are the men that are living, the door knockers, what are they doing differently? Is it just genetic?
Big component was genetics. Second, they took better care of themselves, and they're more connected. So in those cases, their spouse may have died, probably more likely from cancer and breast cancer, female cancers, and they are now widows. But they were also very connected to their work, friends, family, and
some kind of social network.
Social network is paramount to longevity. Yes.
What about sleep and all this? Do men not sleep as much?
Men who are obese tend to snore and have sleep apnea, so they have interrupted sleep. And so that's not a rejuvenative type of sleep for your neurons. So we should cycle 4 times per evening, per night, through the 4 different stages of sleep.
Right, to get a full
every 90 minutes approximately.
Right.
And, there are people who are experts in this. I am not a sleep doctor.
But men are getting it less because of the obesity. So it sounds like men's behaviors are the cause of what's holding them back.
Correct. So I call that TAOs. TAOs. Not Taos, New Mexico.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah,
you mean like Taos Chi?
Close enough. Right? So TAOs stands for tobacco consumption A is for alcohol consumption. O is overconsumption of poor quality foods. And S is sedentary lifestyle. So if you got to look at your TAUs. What is your TAUs?
And the men who live to 80s
have a low score, like have a great TAUs.
I think TAUs is a great topic for the next podcast.
Yes.
Once again,
and you can go skiing there, or you can go hiking
as well.
Yes.
So once again, follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Please rate us on Spotify. Please subscribe on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Please share us on social media: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Did I leave anything out?
I think we need to get on this thing called Twitter. You heard of it?
Yes, I have heard of it.
Yeah. Has our producer heard of it?
I don't have a Twitter account yet. I'm new to this whole social media game.
Yes.
But I understand that it's important because I'd like the message to get out. You know, the
positive messages.
The most important thing to me about the Leverage podcast is trying to help people
live healthy, long.
Well, also as a society, if we have healthy people, then we're not going to have the healthcare crisis, the implosion of our federal government, all that stuff.
In fact, that reminds me, we should.
It's a patriotic duty.
Yes, we should at some point talk about.
We will.
The cost of medicine.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah.
I think that's a good topic.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Please tune in. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
That flowed nicely. Chandler. Keep talking. Okay. Are we still talking? We're going to go change shirts.